Welcome back to the High Road Podcast, where we rise above the noise and walk the path of growth, healing, and truth. Today's episode is a powerful one, and one you need to hear. Whether you're single and doing it all on your own, navigating co-parenting, or parenting with a partner, but more often than not, seem to be doing it yourself. Whatever it looks like for you, parenting comes in many forms, but one truth remains the same. Your presence matters more than your perfection. In this episode, we're diving into a powerful moment from the Mel Robbins Podcast, where her co-host shares compelling research on what children truly need to thrive. And the answer might surprise you. It's not a perfect home. It's not two parents. It's not endless resources. It's one emotionally available, consistent, stable adult. Just one. I'll be opening up about my own journey as a single mother, the moments that broke me, the ones that built me, and what it took to fully embrace the season I was in. This isn't just about surviving parenthood. It's about thriving in it, even when it looks different than you imagined. You'll walk away from this episode with tools to help you embrace your unique parenting season, lean into your strengths, and raise empowered, resilient children, no matter what your family structure looks like. Let's dive in. Welcome back. It's your host, Maddie, and I want to thank you for tuning into today's episode. This is a very special one titled More Than Enough, the truth about parenting alone. We're going to dive into the opposite of what society tells us, and that is that we can be more than enough for our children, even if our family doesn't look normal. I was a single mom for 3 years. And for 2 of those years, I was literally taunted by every single worry, every word, and every hesitation or second look that I got from someone else, from the outside world, from society. As a special educator, I sat in on meetings where we zoned in on a child who was struggling in school. And we talked about ways that we could help them. And we talked about, what their background looked like and what home looks like. And if we can get a hold of parents and if parents are supportive. And oftentimes the main focus on some of the hardest kids that we had were the conversations that end up being that, well, this child comes from a single parent household, or this child comes from these parents, and this adult really struggles, and this parent really struggles, and this parent isn't really around very much. And we never talk about it in a way that they can't be successful, but we talk about it in a way like, man, the cards that are up against this kid, it's hard. It's hard for this kid. And, we talk about ways that we can help and everything that we do in school as educators to not only make this child feel supported and loved and cared for and safe, but how we can help them behaviorally or academically and how we can work with the parent or parents. But over time, I would sit in these meetings, and when we would talk about how there was an absent parent or, maybe a parent who needed to work very long hours, whether it was a single mom or single dad just trying to make ends meet, or a parent who just really, really tried, but they just didn't know how. By the end of those meetings, I would hear all of these things, and I would personally be able to connect to these kids, whether I was working with them or knew of them in school, and my heart would just drop. And by the end of these meetings, I would be deflated and I would take it personally. I would look at these, experiences that some of these kids had had, and I would be able to connect to their stories. I would be able to make connections as to what my own children were going through and how I was a single mom and the things that I was struggling with. And a lot of the things that we had maybe talked about in those meetings about what was hard or what was hard at home, money. All of those things were hard for me, and I was connecting to it on a personal level. And so I felt like I was just failing. And I felt like I could never be enough for my kids. And I repeated this cycle of guilt and shame for literally years. So I want you to stay with me here. I'm going to give you an example. I was randomly watching a show last night, and this show is Love After Lockup. You can judge me whatever you want about the reality TV shows that I watch, but when I'm watching these shows, it's so entertaining. As you all know, reality TV is very entertaining. It's one of those things where it's like a bad car crash. You can't look away, but you know it's so toxic, or you know it's just so like, ugh, gross. That's like, cringy or whatever. Like, there were so many things as I was watching. I was like, man, I'm trying so hard not to judge right now. And what was going on in my mind was not that I believe that someone can't change. So these people, of course, were finding love while someone was in prison. And then once the incarcerated person got out, then they would get married. And of course, their family, their friends, everybody's extremely worried about them, in most cases, rightfully so, because as I was watching the show, it was like a lot of delusion, a lot of like irrational thinking, not being logical. And, then you could tell once the incarcerated person had gotten out, their behavior was all of a sudden, they weren't in a controlled environment anymore. And now they were this person who probably hasn't gotten rid of some of the bad habits and probably is used to surviving in prison, and just a lot of the tendencies that maybe they had, whether in past life or before they went to prison. And once they went to prison, it seemed like from the show, they still were doing some of those things. They still were acting in some of those ways, and it wasn't very healthy in their relationship. And I'm not going to say that someone can't change, because I am a firm believer in change. But it was pretty apparent that these people were not quite ready for what they were diving into. And it really made me sad for the person who, was waiting for their partner to come out of prison, and they were so hopeful, and it just doesn't end up going the way that they thought. And a lot of it was quite entertaining, but there was actually one woman on there that really actually just made my heart sink. And I was so sad for her. So she had talked about how she had been a single mother for 12 years. She had 3 kids, and she went on this small little rant as they introduced her about how tired she was, about how encompassed she was just about, facing these burdens alone. And that's how she truly viewed it. She viewed her season as a single mother and being so tired of being alone as truly a burden, and wanting someone to come in and help, wanting someone to come in and be the rescuer. She wanted a father for her children, and rightfully so. She wanted the best things for her kids, of course. Was it logical though? It wasn't. And it was really, really sad for me, because I just thought, like, man, she's doing it for all the wrong reasons. And she doesn't even know. She wants to be relieved of some of these motherly duties. That is never ending. When you're a parent, it's never ending. It's a 24-hour, 365 job. You're never getting a break. And she didn't just have one kid. She had 3 kids of various ages. She was tired. And she was ready for something that could just be hers. But she wanted someone to come in and save the day. She wanted someone to come in and take her away from the burden that she was living, because that was her mindset. And it didn't mean that she didn't love her kids. That's not at all what it meant. And I related to her, because I look back and I thought of the 3 years that I was a single mom, and the 2 where I truly viewed it just like her, where it felt like a burden. I loved my kids and I cared for my kids, but I wasn't perceiving it in a way like we were going to benefit from that season. I didn't look at it like I was going to be the best version of myself and my kids were going to be anything that could allow them to be successful and that they could have all the opportunities in the world. No, I didn't see it that way. I viewed that season as such a burden until I rewired my brain to think of something else, to think of it another way. And at one point, going back to this mom, she said, I will either go home and be a single mother or my kids will have a father. And in her mind, that literally was her only two options. Like, she felt like, okay, I'm going to continue this burden of being a single mom, or this man is going to come home with me and he's going to pick up all the pieces and he's going to save us. Like, she wasn't thinking that it still could go wrong. Like, he could come in and take all of the peace that she built and all of the hard work that she did to raise those kids. And that's just it. Like, you can raise kids with another person, but what is that person doing to either benefit or destroy, to build up or take down? Things can go both ways. And sometimes we have to really, all the time actually, we have to be thinking about how things can go either way. And when we think that someone is just going to come in and save us and pick up the pieces, sometimes we're just trying to look at, the other side of the fence and see if the grass is greener. And that's what I did for such a long time. I felt like I just was not enough. I felt tired. I felt burdened. I felt so weak. I wanted just some man or some person just to swoop in and save me and my children. And then when no relationship worked for me, I had tried dating just a couple times. And every single time it did not last long. And every single time it didn't go the way that I expected it to or what I thought. And then that made me feel even more like, man, I'm just not worth it. Look at me. Nobody wants to be with a single mom. And I truly believed that. I truly believed that I was too washed up, that I had already experienced everything and nobody would want to be with me. And I was just waiting to be saved, and I just stayed trapped there. Not one time, until I absolutely had to, until I got to the very bottom, did I realize that I had the opportunity to save myself, that I could save my family, that I was equipped, that God allowed me to be in that place, in that exact moment, and going through that season. And I had gone through everything that I was supposed to, and I could do it. And nobody else had to come in and be the superhero, because I already was. I just didn't know it yet. So I had to rewire my brain to believe that I was more than enough. So what I want to share with you now is a clip from the Mel Robbins Podcast, where you're going to hear research behind what children actually need and why they only need one stable, healthy, consistent parent to do it. Not a perfect one, not one that has it all together, and not one that's just waiting to be saved. Because you can truly be everything that your children need you to be. So I'm so excited for you to hear this clip. Here it is.
You said that the parenting is the single most powerful environmental factor for a child. And we talked about the fact that, a child could be in a very unsafe, stressful physical environment or country or like house.
Yeah.
But if you have a safe, protective parent that feels like home, that is a very stabilizing force. And I want to be sure, just to validate if it's true, that you could also be in the most safe, affluent, amazing household in terms of the physical space. But if you have unsafe parents or people that are not there consistently, that still is the single biggest environmental factor, like who the parents are.
So, and I say this with so much compassion because when I first learned about this literature, I was like, that is daunting.
Well, no, I actually think it's very inspiring because
I do too.
We're all so busy chasing all this stuff for our kids. And the research is pointing to the fact that it's actually what you personally provide with your energy and whether or not, more often than not, you're showing up in a way that makes the child feel loved and seen and accepted. And, I think for anybody that grew up in a household where you look around, you're like, well, it's not like I was beaten.
Right.
But there's something that feels really off. What the research is probably pointing to is you had all the stuff on the outside, but in terms of the parent being able to provide the most important and powerful environment, which is their own emotional stability and presence, that you didn't get that.
So it sometimes gets replaced, like somebody found an amazing coach or mentor. So one adult in your life that has kind of got your back, that loves you for who you are, not the splendor of your accomplishments, all that stuff buffers the impact of even the most horrific stressors. So when you think about...
That's what the research says.
That's what the research says. So there's toxic stress. We talk about stress all the time, but we need to distinguish between what kind of stressors, because some stress is great. That's called positive stress, and that leads to growth. Any stress that is not long-term harmful, it's just like a short-term, it's like those little weights that you're lifting. They're uncomfortable, but that it leads to growth. We need that stress in order to be resilient humans. It's not possible to grow resilience without having positive stressors. Then there's tolerable stressors, which are the things that you wouldn't wish on people, but they happen. Divorce, death of a loved one, things that are really hard, but in the presence of a loving, supportive caregiver can actually grow resilience. And then there's toxic stress. You would not wish toxic stress on any human ever. It's horrible stuff. But what I think is spectacular about this research is that if you take what would be listed as a toxic stressor.
Like what?
Like witnessing abuse. And you have just one caregiver that has that safe, stable, connected relationship, it moves the categorization of the stressor from toxic to tolerable. And to me, the fact that the parenting environment can buffer the impact of those kinds of things is so relieving, and we can do that.
I really wish I would have known that sooner. It would have helped me in the 2 years I was searching for what I was already equipped to do. As parents, we want the very best for our children. But when our lives look different and we're suddenly comparing ourselves to other families and hearing what society thinks is weak and not ideal, it discourages us. And it makes us feel disconnected. And it makes us feel like nobody understands what we're going through. Because oftentimes, what our family structure looks like is never what we expected it to be. The things that we face in this life that are hard, they're oftentimes never things that we thought would happen. And it almost leaves us trapped. But today, if you don't know this already, I want you to understand that you are more than enough for your children. Because research says that they need just one parent, one stable parent, one consistent, loving, nurturing parent, one that they can trust. That doesn't mean our children will not face hardship and that we can just solve every single problem for them, because they are going to go through hard things. And it means that we have the ability to help them become resilient in this life, because this life is so hard. So we are going to dive into this right after our short break for our ads. So stay tuned and share this with someone right now who will benefit from this episode. Maybe a parent who needs encouragement. Maybe a parent who isn't single but ends up doing most of the tasks and the traveling and the activities alone and needs to know that they are more than enough. Or maybe it's a parent who isn't single, isn't doing it alone, but just needs to know how much their presence and emotional availability will help their child be successful and resilient in this very hard world. So we'll be right back, and I can't wait to share more. All right, we're back and diving deep into some amazing information after hearing that short clip from the Mel Robbins podcast. The second half of this episode, we're going to talk about tools to build resilient children and how we can turn our weaknesses into strengths as parents. But what does that even mean? What does it mean to use our weaknesses as our strengths? Well, for me, it meant that I got so low as a parent, as an individual. I felt so weak because of my circumstances. I felt like I wasn't enough. I felt tired all the time. I was literally financially drowning. I was constantly fighting time and my ability to be present. I needed to work but was missing out on time with my kids. I wanted relationships with others but couldn't find connection. I was crashing midday, losing sleep at night, worrying, and lacking any and all self-care. So I started diving into resources. I wanted someone to give me something that I just did not know, something that I was missing. I started listening to podcasts. I started reading books. I stopped listening to society's view on single parenthood. I would tune it out the absolute best that I could. I stopped scrolling through TikTok videos of single moms crying on the floor, fearing that they will be alone forever, and just wanting someone to step in. I stopped feeling sorry for myself in that way. I stopped throwing a pity party because for almost 2 years, I threw a pity party that kept me stuck in a place that was not benefiting me or my family. I started getting out of the house with my kids on my own. And this was a huge thing for me because oftentimes I wouldn't even do any activities. I wouldn't do anything unless I had help, unless maybe I had my family to be there. And I started doing things on my own. I started embracing my hard feelings, crying when I needed to, rather than holding it in and then ending up being angry or frustrated hours or days later. And showing my kids that I had emotions too. But I started turning things around one day at a time. And suddenly over time, my weaknesses started to become my strengths. I started using my single parenthood as a way to not only better my children, but myself. I'll never forget the time that I was talking to a coworker. And at that time, I had known that she had a very large family and a very loving husband. But I had absolutely no idea that in her past life, in a long time ago, that she was once a single parent. And I'll never forget, as I was talking to her and, just kind of telling her about life lately, I'll never forget that she told me to take pride in being a single mom. She told me there was so much power in the season that I was in, and that I could be absolutely everything for my children. I needed to hear that exact thing in that moment. And so today, if this is the sign that you need, if this is exactly what you need to hear, just know, whatever it looks like for you, you are more than enough. And you should take pride in being your children's parent, in doing it when it's hard, in doing it when it's easy, doing it when you don't feel like it. Because this is the most important job in the entire world. And you were chosen to be your children's parent. And you are fully equipped. So that's when I felt like during that season, I stopped looking at other people to save me. I stopped having a pity party. I stopped looking at my life as my current season of being alone and no one feeling like I wasn't wanted. I was done looking at my life as a burden. And I started looking inward. I started looking at where did I need to heal? What are the conversations that I need to have with myself? Where am I struggling? Why do I want someone to come in and save me? Why am I viewing my life like this? Why am I comparing myself to these people? These people who are so different and far from me, and this family who is so different and far from me. Why do I feel like I'm not enough? What are coping skills that I need to develop so that I can teach my children? In what ways, why do I feel like I can't be who my children need me to be? And so I started having those conversations with myself. I started pausing and reflecting, and suddenly my kids and I started having more movie nights. We started having more pizza dinners on the floor, more random walks, more conversations, more reading books at night, more science projects, more lunch dates. And suddenly, before I knew it, I was not just surviving as a single mom. I was suddenly thriving. I was suddenly giving myself grace and telling myself that I'm doing the very best that I can. Suddenly, I was more patient. Suddenly, we were having more fun. Suddenly, we were laughing more. We were connecting more. And I was feeling more fulfilled than I ever had been as a mother before. So today, if you are wondering how you can get to this point, here's how. And I want you first to understand that this episode is not to make you feel condemned or convicted if you are not at this point. Because being a parent, no matter if you're doing it with someone or if you're not, it's tiring. It's exhausting. And when we're dealing with things of this world and other stressors and dealing with bills and dealing with juggling time and resources and volunteering and trying to make time for other family and other friends and getting the kids to bed on time and making sure that everybody gets a bath and making sure that we're eating healthy and we have dinner prepared and everybody's eating. Life is a lot. On top of maybe other traumas or events or hard things that are happening. Losing a family member, having issues at work, having conflicts with friends. These are all incredible things that sit on our shoulders, and they are burdensome and they feel that way. So today I want you to truly understand that if this is where you are, that is okay. And the only reason that I can come on here and I can say these things is because every single thing that I give tips or advice to is because I learned the hardest way. And that's it. I had to learn the hard way. And I'm grateful for that. So today I want to give you some points that may possibly help. How can we feel like we can be better parents? Like we can be everything that our kids need us to be? That we can build successful and resilient children. Because the goal is not that our children grow up to be CEOs. The goal is not that our children grow up to have the fanciest cars or have the relationship or the family that is the white picket fence. That's not the goal. We're not here to impress other people, and we're not here to compare ourselves to other people. The goal is that we are resilient and that we are able to face the hard things that come in this life, and that we're able to perceive these things in a way where we can still be grateful, where we can still make a choice to be happy, where we can still keep going even when it's hard and not giving up, and that we can still maintain relationships and apologize when we're wrong, that we can be good people and do the right thing even when no one is looking. That is the goal for our children. And that is what we need to model. And so how we can get to this point is by being consistently emotionally available. What this means is your child doesn't need you to be perfect. They simply need you to be present. This is something that I struggled with for such a long time. I struggled with being present because I was working so hard all day long. Then by the time I was actually with my kids, I was tired and I wanted to clock out and I couldn't. My kids needed me and your kids need you. They need you to be present. So create small daily rituals. Maybe it's a bedtime check-in or breakfast chats. Maybe it's, bath time. You're making sure, no matter what, that you are sitting there, playing with them, talking with them, that you're reading books at night. Whatever the case is, create some sort of consistent daily ritual that they can count on. That if they know that they need to talk to you, or if something is bothering them, they want to tell you how they feel, they know that they have that opportunity to do that. That you are going to be fully present, that you are going to listen without interrupting, that you're going to give them eye contact, give them body language, and you're going to model that to them. This means that you can validate their emotions without jumping in to fix everything. As parents, that's what we want to do, and it hurts us when we can't solve everything. But it teaches our children that not everything has a solution. Sometimes we have to sit with things for days. Sometimes there isn't a solution. Sometimes we don't know what to do. Sometimes we don't know how to solve that relationship. Sometimes we don't know how to solve this problem that came up in life. But we'll keep brainstorming and we'll keep going. And we'll just take it day by day because maybe a solution will pop up in a couple days. And you know what? You and I can talk about it. But we just can't solve everything for them. And that starts with the little stuff. By when they have, a simple issue with, if they're little toddlers, not taking the marker cap off the first second that they're struggling. Telling them to try again. If they're teenagers, that the second that they have a problem at their job and they requested a day off but they didn't get it and they need to have a hard conversation with their boss, or they need to have a hard conversation with their friends about not being able to make an event that they were hoping to make. Encourage them to have those hard conversations and know that you can't butt in and do it for them. But most importantly, let them feel seen, heard, and safe expressing themselves. The second one that I have for you is model healthy coping skills. What this means is kids learn resilience by watching how you handle challenges. If every single time you face the smallest inconvenience and you're yelling, screaming, and throwing a chair and slamming doors, what on earth makes you think that they're not going to do the same thing? We have to be able to narrate our thought process when managing stress. So we're teaching them the verbiage. I'm feeling overwhelmed and I'm going to take a deep breath. I'm feeling frustrated. I'm going to go take 5 minutes in my room. Those things are perfectly okay, and teach children that they can be verbal during those moments. And if they can't, if they don't want to, they can say things like, I'm not ready to talk and I need some space. Let them see you regulate big emotions calmly. Show them that it's okay to ask for help when needed. There are so many times when I need help when I'm frustrated. There are so many times when my children need help when they're frustrated. And again, I'm not solving problems for them, but maybe they need a hug. Maybe they need to be told that it's okay. In this podcast, it actually was that I showed you from the Mel Robbins clip was the researcher, the co-host, had actually said, all emotions are welcome, but all behaviors are not. And that really stuck with me. And that's something that we need to teach our children, that it's okay to feel anything that you need to feel. You can feel frustrated, mad, angry, but just because you are those things doesn't mean that you get to be disrespectful to me. It doesn't mean that you get to be verbally or physically aggressive. Those things are not okay. And we have to teach our children those things. We have to teach them that we can't act out just because we're feeling a certain way. The third one is let them experience age-appropriate struggles. And we've kind of talked about this a little bit, but going into it further, shielding kids from every challenge does not prepare them for life. When we're constantly solving problems for them, when they're forgetting something at school, not once, not twice, 3, 4, 5, 6 times, and they're not prepared, and every single time we're leaving work to run to the store to go grab whatever they need that day because they're late on a school project, it's not teaching them anything. It's not teaching them to be prepared. It's not teaching them the natural consequences of what they might face because they chose to not be organized, to not be prepared. So allow natural consequences when it's safe. Encourage problem solving. What do you think that you should do next time? And you can have these conversations at any age. And again, it's going to sound different. It will sound very different from what a teenager decides they could do different next time versus what a toddler might be able to process, but still have these conversations and start that critical thinking. Praise effort and persistence, not just outcomes. And understand this often hurts parents just as much, if not more, to experience their children facing uncomfortable times. It hurts so bad to see your children go through hard times, but we have to be able to let them go through those times and help them to know that they're supported, that you're right there, but you just can't solve it for them. Number 4 is create a safe and predictable environment. What this means is stability at home builds emotional security. How we can do this is we can stick to routines as much as possible. It's so important to be consistent, to have that structure because children thrive at all ages. They thrive in that. Be predictable in your reactions. That means don't one day be throwing chairs and the next day you're crying on the floor and the next day you're ignoring them. Be consistent. They should know what to expect from you. If every single time they come to you and it's a different reaction and they want to talk to you, and the first time it's, what do you want? I don't have time for this. And the second time it's, I can't believe you did this. Are you kidding me? And the third time it's, well, why won't you talk to me? I'm ready to talk. I want to talk to you. Why on earth are they going to talk to you? So we want those reactions to be as consistent as possible. And I know this is hard, but it's something that will really, really help our children be able to predict their environments and avoid any empty threats or inconsistent discipline. If one day you're allowing them to behave in any way, shape, or form, and then the next day you're taking away Christmas because of something little that they did, we have to be able to be consistent in the way that we are disciplining and understand that discipline is a form of love and that we're not just threatening because eventually they're not going to care what we have to say. Eventually they're going to know that we're not going to follow through with it. So number 5 is speak life into them. Words become their inner voice. Use affirmations. You are brave, you are kind, you are capable. Research says that when you're repeating things and when you are hearing these words, that it's actually rewiring your brain and then when you're repeating them. So it's this motor development of changing the way that you're thinking because of what you're hearing and because of what you're saying. Reflect their strengths back to them. I saw how you didn't give up today. That's resilience. My son started boxing recently, and he is the youngest, almost the youngest in the class, and for sure the newest. And so there are so many things that are hard to watch when he isn't getting it or when he feels like giving up because everybody else is getting it and he isn't. But I'm just thinking in the back of my mind that it's building so much resilience in just telling him to keep going and giving him that option to keep going and to not give up. He was running and he had fallen right before class had started. And so he had a very bruised knee and a very bruised arm, and, giving him that empathy and that support. Like, I know that this hurts, but sometimes in life things are really hard and we still have to show up. We still have to keep going, and helping him make that connection, and then praising him when he finished that. Like, you did it. You did that. That was really, really hard. So encourage a growth mindset. Mistakes help us learn. Our goal is to not teach kids that they need to be perfect, because we're not perfect parents, and that is not the goal. But we want them to understand that mistakes are going to happen and that we have the ability to learn from them. And that is exactly what the whole purpose is. Number 6, we want to be able to foster connection, not control. A strong, respectful relationship creates a foundation for resilience. We want to spend intentional one-on-one time together, even just 10 minutes a day. Every single stage is different, so this is going to look much different when you have little toddlers who don't want to leave your side. They don't even give you 5 minutes to yourself. It's easy to get that time with them. Versus having teenagers, where it's incredibly hard to get that time with them. They're so busy. They have work now. They have activities. They have friends. Whatever it is, whatever stage your children are in, find time to be together, to spend intentional one-on-one time with them, and make it meaningful to them. Not just when you want to, but make it something that they want to do too. Let them talk freely without interruption or correction. Be curious and not reactive when they mess up. Why did you do that? What were you thinking in your mind when you decided to do that thing? When you decided to say that to me? When you decided to do that with your friends? What were you thinking? And not, what were you thinking, right? There comes a time when we need to use that stern voice, but oftentimes, in most cases, when we're trying to have this one-on-one connection with them, if we're being stern and not listening, and speaking to be heard but not listening to understand, it's going to just shut them down. And it's so important for us to also zone in on the fact that they are supposed to mess up when they're young. And it's not like we want them to. Of course, we want them to be successful all the time. And it's hard for us as parents to see our kids making mistakes. But in order for them to build resilience and understand correction and understand what happens when you make mistakes and how you can, correct those and fix them, and what happens, what are the consequences behind those mistakes and behind those choices, they have to mess up. We can't walk around like we're these perfect people, and then once they're adults, crap, I messed up big time, and now there's a huge consequence coming my way. It's important that they mess up when they're young, so they understand that. It's important for them to have connection, to have appropriate discipline, so they can learn to be resilient in those moments. Now, number 7, last but not least, is normalize hard things. Life is full of pain and struggle, as we know, and that is okay. There's nothing that we can do about it. That is just inevitable. So give your kids real life examples. Model to them. Show that hardship can lead to growth. Give them, examples of the things that you've gone through. People oftentimes connect so much more to people who have gone through maybe similar things or gone through hardship and struggle, rather than someone who's just perfect and someone who has all the answers. People don't connect like that. And so help our kids to understand that, I've gone through similar things, or I've gone through really hard things too before, and this is what I did. Normalize the verbiage, like, this is hard and we can do hard things. This is hard. You can do hard things. Help them to rewire their brain. Help them to name what they're feeling and remind them that it won't last forever. This is really a skill, and we have to be able to teach this skill to our children, because I am someone who, when I'm going through something really, really hard, sometimes I have to really process for a very long period of time. And that might even mean that I'm not finding the words until the next day. And so helping our kids be able to communicate what they need and what they need from other people. How can we help you get your needs met, and have them communicate that in rational and logical ways rather than acting out. Normalize the phrase, all emotions are welcome, all behaviors are not. You can feel any way that you need to, but you do not get to be disrespectful to me. Just because you're going through something hard does not mean that you get to do whatever you want. We're showing them that we have boundaries, and that when life throws hard things at us, we still have to have our thinking caps on. But we have to teach our kids those skills. I'll never forget the metaphor I heard one time from a woman who was talking about, kids building coping mechanisms and building the skills that they need to handle hard emotions. And she was like, if we're asking a kid, to communicate or to calm down when that's never been modeled to them, that's like asking me to build a house from the ground up. It's not possible. I don't know how to do that. And so it's so important that we're modeling those things. To kind of leave you with a personal story of mine, talking about hardship. I'll never forget evening that really just rewired my brain in a lot of ways. And it helped me to choose resilience and to model resilience to my children. I was having just a very hard evening. It was right around Christmas time, and I just felt very lonely, and I was facing a lot of just discomfort. I was in an uncomfortable season where I was having to have hard conversations with myself. I was, for the first time learning to sit with myself and sit with my feelings and not run from them. And I guess I just was kind of mentally exhausted. I was stressed out with the financial burdens that I was facing, and just kind of felt like nothing was really going my way. And I was frustrated and sad, like just a bunch of different feelings. And so I told my kids that I just needed 5 minutes, and I went to my stairs and sat down, and I just was crying. And so after a few minutes, my kids came and just were shocked. And they right away gave me a hug and rubbed my back and told me that it was okay. And my heart was so warm in that moment, because kids are going to model and mirror and reflect what you show to them. They are embedded to be nurturing, to be nurturers. As people, that's what we're supposed to be, until they're shown otherwise. So until they're given the cold shoulder, or until they're shown someone who is not emotionally available. Otherwise, they're going to give us those nurturing moments. And so that was such a sweet moment for me as a mother to experience. And, I had just told them what I was feeling. And so I verbalized my emotions. I'm just sad, and I'm frustrated. And, in their appropriate, they're 3 and 4. So in terms that they could understand what I was feeling. And I took a couple more minutes, and I got a couple more hugs. And I just decided in that moment that I could sit with this. I didn't feel like doing anything, and I could let it really just control me. And I knew what it felt like already to be trapped and for, people and situations to control me. But I wanted to rewire my brain to choose resilience and to choose ways that I can control things. Because I couldn't control, that I was feeling the things that I was feeling, that I was feeling the discomfort. That was just going to happen because of the things that I was going through. And I also couldn't control the other things that were happening, all of my financial struggles and the other stressors that were just weighing me down. But in that moment, I was going to choose resilience, and that just meant doing something so simple, like asking my kids, would you like to maybe cheer me up, and can we go get some hot chocolate and go look at Christmas lights? And they were so excited. And I remember coming home that night and after driving around for about an hour with my kids and just having a conversation and listening to Christmas music, being you know what, these other things, these other stressors, they didn't go away. And I can't control them. But I felt so good because I looked at my children and I thought, I didn't hide my feelings or my emotions from them, but they seen resilience and they seen me controlling what I could control. And we had an amazing night. And I looked at the peace that I had, and that was the moment that really began to rewire my brain to make me feel like I am more than enough. I am more than enough for my kids. I'm more than enough for, as a parent. Because no matter your good days or your bad days, our kids need to be able to see those. And they need to know that it is okay. But in those moments, you are more than enough. And you can still control something in your story. So today, I want to leave you with this. If you are parenting alone, whether by choice, circumstance, or season, I hope this episode reminded you of one powerful truth. You are not half of a whole. You are a whole. You are not just one parent. You are the parent showing up day in and day out with love, with grit, and with a heart that refuses to give up. Your presence, your consistency, your emotional availability, that is the foundation your child needs to thrive. You are enough. In fact, you are more than enough. And I know that this path is not easy. I've walked it too. But I also know it's sacred. And I promise, the work you're doing behind closed doors matters more than the world will ever see. Because you stuck around today, I want to thank you for listening. But I also want to tell you that you made a step towards a better life. You care. And you are fully equipped as a parent. So use this time in your life as your superpower. Use what you believe is possibly your weakness as your strength. And keep going. You're not alone. And if you ever forget your strength, come back to this space, because the High Road Podcast is here to remind you of who you are and what you're capable of. Make sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you don't miss next week's episode, where we continue this journey together, one honest conversation at a time. Until then, keep showing up, keep loving hard, and keep choosing the high road. And remember, you are more than enough. God bless you.